So we're only going to be using the egg white of the egg. And so to do that, you're going to want to crack into a bowl, let the egg white drip out, and you can move the yolk back and forth, and then you can set the yolk aside. To get 4 ounces of cheddar cheese, basically you can get an 8-ounce brick and you can cut it in half. That works really well. And we're using whole cheese and we're going to grate it ourselves, because sometimes when you buy the stuff in the supermarket that's already pre-grated, it will not melt as well as if you do it yourself. As always, you want to make sure your area is spotless, super clean, nothing on the countertops, because you're going to be kneading dough there. So I'm using my favorite plastic bowl from Dollar Tree to make my dough. So I'm going to put in the yeast and then the warm water. And this warm water is going to act to kind of wake up the yeast. Wake up, wake up. Let's do this. And I'm going to add in some sugar. And that sugar is what the yeast is going to feed on. Give that a little stir there. Give it, mix it up there, let the yeast and the sugar come into contact with each other. Now I'm going to add in my salt, and this is going to add flavor to our pretzel dough. And I'm just going to give that another stir. No reason in particular, I just like using that whisk. It's kind of fun, you know, whisk it up. Now, as you can see here, I'm going to add in my flour, and we're really going to get started. So I'm going to use my hands. It's just my preferred way of doing things. It's going to be a little bit messy, and it's going to be slow going in the beginning, because you don't want to just like mush everything together. Not that it would hurt the dough, but rather you really want to hydrate that flour with your water that you put in there. So you just kind of have at it for a little bit of time until it starts coming together, and it's really going to stick to your fingers at first. Now that you've got it into somewhat of a mass, we're going to move it out of the bowl and onto our clean countertop. And at this point in time, you know it's going to be all over your fingers, but you can just learn to deal with it. So you're going to start kneading on your countertop, pushing everything together. You can see here it's very, very dry. And that's something that you can come into contact with a lot when you start working with different breads, is sometimes the dough will be too wet, or sometimes it'll be too dry. You can see here it's really dry and flaky. So I'm just going to add a little bit more water. I'm going to clean my hands off first before I go over to the sink to get some more water. And so I got some more water here. I'm just going to put some there on my countertop, roll the dough into it, you know, see if that helps a little bit. And you know, by adding more water to your dough, that helps for the gluten formation. We talked about that in class a week ago. You know, gluten is what happens when those two protein molecules from the flour come into contact with the water, and also by manual manipulation, whether that's you using your hands to knead or you using a industrial or KitchenAid mixer to put it together to knead. You're letting those gluten molecules come into contact with each other, and those molecules are what is going to form the basis of the net that's going to capture the gas that the yeast is going to make. Because you remember, the yeast feeds on the sugars and the carbohydrates in your dough, releases gas, and that gas gets trapped in the gluten network, which creates the air that helps your dough to rise. I've been kneading for quite some time already, but I'm not done yet. In actuality, you're going to need to do this for 10 whole minutes. That's right, 10 whole minutes, because you really want this gluten to get developed. You don't want to worry about having your gluten not developed enough and then your pretzel dough will not rise. So I'm getting towards the end of my 10 minutes. I sped this video up there. And so I'm going to have my glass bowl that I used earlier. I'm going to dump it in there and cover it with plastic wrap, and I'm going to set it aside for 2 hours. 2 hours. This dough really had a really good rise, and I'm gonna kind of shape it a little bit. So I've floured my countertop there, and I'm gonna put my dough out there on my countertop, just getting it out little by little. It's kind of stuck to the inside of the bowl. Maybe I should have oiled it, but whatever, it's fine, live and learn. And so I'm on my countertop here, and I'm rolling it out into a log. Now, I'm not gifted enough or skilled enough to make beautiful looking pretzels, so I'm just doing pretzel bites. If you want to do pretzels, you could, but I'm just doing pretzel bites. So I'm going to make this really, really long, and then I'm going to start cutting. I'm using a bench scraper to cut, but you could use a knife if you don't have a bench scraper at home. And so I'm going to start here, and I'm going to cut it again, because what's going to happen is these are going to rise, and they're going to get like 3 times as big as you see right there. They're going to rise while you're waiting to put them in the oven, and then they're also going to rise once more inside the oven. Now I'm just getting everything ready. I've prepared a little cutting board here, floured it so it doesn't stick, and I'm just kind of putting them there for now. You're going to want to get that oven hot to 450 degrees. Alright, on your stovetop you're going to want to prepare a large pot of water, about halfway full of water, and once it starts boiling there, you're going to add in some baking soda, and this baking soda is what's going to help give that really nice brown shine to our pretzel bites when they're done. And so this is going to attach to the dough bites as they're boiling in there, and you're only going to put them in the water for 30 seconds. You're not necessarily cooking your dough in the boiling water. You just want that baking soda to kind of attach to the outside so that when you do bake it, you get that really nice brown golden color. And so we're going to remove them from the boiling water in just a little bit after about 30 seconds. So I've got my egg wash here, and what my egg wash is essentially I have my egg whites and I'm adding a little bit of water and giving it a good stir. You're going to want to prepare a sheet pan, and I like to give mine a good spray with cooking spray just in case. I don't want anything to stick. Now I'm going to layer my bites out here on the pan, with a little bit of space in between. They will rise a little bit during the oven process, but not like cookies where they get stuck together. So you can crowd them in there. And I'm going to put my egg wash on top. Now I'm really layering this egg wash on top because I really want that nice golden color as I brush it on there. So this egg wash, along with the baking soda water boiling that you did earlier, is going to give it that really nice color when you're done with it. And this is going to get activated in the oven when you bake it. Now I'm also going to salt my pretzel bites. I'm using kosher salt, which is real nice chunks of salt that you can put on your pretzel bites. Now they're into the oven, and I'm going to put them in the oven for about 12 minutes. Your oven time may vary. Just check it as you're going through. So on my stovetop here, I'm going to prepare my nacho sauce. So I've got my half tablespoon of butter in there, and I'm going to start melting it over some medium heat. And I'm just going to melt it, give some stir there in my saucepan as it's melting. And I'm going to add my flour in. Now flour is not edible until it's been cooked, which is why we're going to cook it in our butter. And we're going to cook this for about 1 minute, just constantly stirring. You don't want your flour to get burnt, which can happen if you leave it in a stationary place and you don't continue stirring. So I'm just going to continue doing that for about 1 minute, keep stirring it. And this flour, eventually, while we're adding it to our cheese sauce, because why would you add flour to a cheese sauce? It's going to be a thickener. So I'm putting my milk in there, and these globules inside the starch molecules of the flour are going to expand and thicken in our nacho cheese mixture. So I'm using a whisk here with our milk, and I'm just giving it some good stirs until it starts to thicken up. It will start to thicken up over medium-low heat after about a minute. We're now ready to add the official star of this dish. We are sharp cheddar cheese that we grated earlier. So we're going to turn off the heat. That way we don't have heat going on. We don't want to burn our cheese. And I'm going to give this a good stir. I've sped up the video 4 times action. And I'm going to add in my hot sauce for a little bit of zing. If you don't like hot sauce, you don't have to add that in. And a little bit of pepper. I'm not going to add extra salt because there's already a lot of salt. So I'm going to open my oven here, and here they are. If you notice, the pan's a little different because this is my second batch. The first batch was already done, and this is the second batch. So we're going to let them cool there on the pan for just a little bit. And when you're ready to go, you can arrange them however you want. Maybe you're having some guests over, maybe you're just eating them for yourself. But you can't go wrong with pretzel and nacho cheese.